Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. All right, all you positive heads, welcome back. Here we go again. Happy to be here with you all. It's another beautiful day in paradise. Hope you are magical wherever, whenever, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whenever you're doing it. You know, you get the idea. All right, so let's see. Today, before we jump in, I would like to read a review on iTunes. Super excited to get reviews, of course. They help us to reach new people. And by the way, the show is, I love it. Every few months, maybe every 3 or 4 months, all of a sudden the show will just spike, like crazy spike in downloads. And, you know, it's been sort of a pattern. Now, I'm not sure how, where, why they spike, what happens, you know, but we crossed for the first time 20,000 downloads in a day. So, woohoo! Ow! Thank you guys for sharing, for listening. It's a big feat. I remember when I first started listening to, when I first was setting up the podcast, I was listening to this guy, John Lee Dumas, who he's an entrepreneur. He has a show called Entrepreneur on Fire, and he basically just talks about, you know, teaches people some of the basics of setting things up. So I was listening to a couple of his, his clips and whatnot. And he talked about getting 30,000 a day was where he was at the time. And I'm thinking, wow, that's so many listeners. And here we are, 2 years later, and we crossed over 21,000 in a day. So who knows where we'll be this time next year with all of you guys supporting, loving, sharing, telling friends and family. So I thank you all for doing what you're doing to help get the word out about the show. It means a lot. It definitely fuels my fire. These reviews fuel my fire as well. So if you haven't reviewed on iTunes, please do so. If not, that's okay too. But yeah, when you do, it makes me smile. And today I have a review by Ethan Edwards. And Ethan says, "My favorite podcast. We are all unique fractals of one source energy." I'm not going to take a long time trying to explain how much this has been a comfort, a laugh, a friend, and a shot of energy. But it's all of those things. This thing has momentum, and Brandon is doing such an incredible thing. It helps me, and it is helping the world. Oneness, positivity, openness. Oh, thank you, Ethan Edward. And a little synchronicity there, him saying this thing has momentum, right? I was not even aware what I was going to read before I read it. And it's just, just those little winks, those little exclamation marks from the universe. And, in this case, Ethan is playing a part in that. It's just such a beautiful experience to see how things sync up and how we can support each other. I have, actually, speaking of that, there's a listener, Cody, who just messaged me, so it made me think of it. he's having a bit of a hard time, and so I wanted to connect him with Daniel Raphael, who does some coaching and so forth, counseling of people who are going through a hard time. Because a lot of times during your wake up process, right? We've talked about this recently, the dark night of the soul, and it can be a sort of a scary time for people, and where sometimes people lose hope and lose the will to be here, or as they wake up to the fact that they're multidimensional beings, and then this world is so what a lot of people report when they have a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience, or, I can think of even my sister talking about having an incredibly lucid flying dream and coming back to this world and being like depressed that she's like, oh my gosh, this dense body again. And I was so free. And I believe that's a thing that is common oftentimes. So if any of you out there are struggling in any way, shape, or form, certainly if you've had suicidal thoughts or anything like that, there are people who like Daniel out there who are just excellent light warriors here to help sort of transition you and get your perspective shifted. And of course, that's what this show is all about, shifting perspective too. But this is just sort of a common thing. I think a lot of people, you're not alone. You're not crazy, where you're sort of that apathy stage can happen sometimes. And the important thing is to love that stage and to realize it's just a stage. There is no final destination in your journey in this life. But as you're waking up, a lot of times all the blockages are going to come up, and that dark night of the soul happens. You got one foot in an old world, one foot in a new, and you feel lost and confused and screw it, I just want out kind of thing. And I would just say keep on keeping on, because it's always oftentimes darkest before the dawn, right? We know that. That's a saying for a reason. It rings true when I say it to you for a reason. So you don't want to ever give up on something and then look back and say, man, or get a perspective, an expanded perspective, and say, man, if I'd kept going, what gifts were waiting? And I threw in the towel. And sure, we can always restart. And I don't think there's an ultimate end if any of us give up on a project, or an extreme example, giving up on their life, right? But in the end, I think pushing through and following through and believing and loving the dark side, if you're ever dealing with that, bringing love to it. But it's funny, this guy Cody, this awesome listener, friend, was, we were talking a little bit. He's had a little bit of a tough time. And so we had some very encouraging conversations. I hooked him up with Daniel to speak with him. And then he just messaged me, he goes, you wouldn't believe this. I just won a raffle at work, and I got this computer on the back of it. The name on it is Beecham, spelled exactly like my last name. And it's it's funny because, my last name's not that common, and certainly not spelled exactly the same. So, once again, those little winks, those little synchronicities. In this case, Ethan, I was talking about the momentum of the show and expressing gratitude to you guys for helping the show to get there. And, he exclamates that with, this thing has momentum. It does. You have momentum. We have momentum. We're doing it. And it's a pleasure and an honor to take this ride with you all. All right, then. Let's see. Moving right along. What am I going to talk about for the rest of the episode? Because I kind of started talking about things. What I sort of planned, there's what I plan, which I always loosely plan. I don't spend a lot of time planning. I like to let things organically bubble up and see what comes through. But there's certainly, obviously, if I have a clip queued up or anything like that, or a particular question or any of those things. So today, what I was feeling called to do was something I haven't done in a while, maybe a month or so, is read a chapter from a book. One of my favorite books. I read one chapter one time before. I chose a random chapter, or I actually had people in the Positive Heads Facebook group, which that reminds me, if you're not there, get on there. I had people in the group, pick a number between 1 and whatever the number of chapters in this book is. And then I grabbed one of those, and that's what I read for today. So for that day. So today I have decided to read again from the book Oneness, which is transcribed, received, channeled material by Rasha. And I've often said this book is like the handbook for ascension, I feel. And it just really resonates with me. And so, I felt like doing a little reading today. And I thought, well, if I feel like reading, I might as well share that experience with you guys. And so, and I've read the whole book. It's been a long time since I've read it. So it's sort of like reading it new for me as I go back. And it's one of those you could read many, many times and get something new all the time. So I just randomly decided to read chapter 2 on my own today. So the title, or sort of the main subjects of this chapter, are A Glimpse into the Experience of Ascension, Integrating Fragmented Aspects of Consciousness, and Attaining the Perspective of One's Own Expanded Multidimensional Self. Sounds like good topics, right? Yeah. All right, here we go. You have come to this place in time for a multiplicity of reasons. You have come for the opportunity to transcend the parameters that define your existence. And in the same breath, you have come to deepen your connection with the interwoven aspects of your beingness that give your life definition in the truest sense. You have come to this experience you know as your life in order to be able to reject completely the consensus view of reality imprinted upon you since birth, and to replace that structure of understanding with a perspective that totally transcends it. This is the first time in your personal history as an incarnate individual that your conscious awareness has been augmented with levels of energy that enable you to transcend your physical senses. This is the first incarnation in which you have been able to reinforce intuitive knowingness with experiential knowingness. This is the moment you have been waiting for eons of existence. For this is the lifetime that will catapult you beyond all you know to a depth of awareness and understanding you are as yet unable to fathom. Trust that this process in which you are, by now deeply invested, is unfolding as it is meant to, and that everything is indeed in divine order. You are a spark of divinity in the throes of activation. The programming for the process is deep-seated within you, and it will unfold at its own pace, regardless of steps you might be encouraged to take to accelerate that momentum. You may experience a sense of reassurance by participating in group activities targeted at expanding your consciousness. And you may indeed experience sensations indicated of amplified levels of energy during such activities. But know that the results of such exercises are, for the most part, short-lived. For the foundation for sustaining that energy is built from within, and the momentum of your growth is rooted in stillness. There's a place within the depths of one's being where opportunities that defy linear logic are able to unfold. The key to maximizing the pace of your process lies in the degrees to which you are able to let go and cease directing the scenarios of your drama. Allow life to unfold for you and recognize the potential in the synchronicity that presents itself. Note the perfection in the results and consider the possibility that your best interests are best served by a level of awareness that transcends your conscious mind. Recognize your tendencies rooted in fear of a less than optimum outcome of your efforts to attempt to direct that outcome. Dispense with your prior understanding of how results are manifested, and allow the circumstances that present themselves to nudge you in the direction of your highest possible good. As you become more comfortable with the process, you will begin to notice how easily the opportunities flow and how effortlessly you are able to manifest results that serve you at the highest level. You stand at the threshold of a grand adventure, and the extent to which you are able to experience the fullness of that journey is determined by the extent to which you are able to let go of the scenarios that no longer serve you. You have noticed with rare exception that the circumstances of your life are unraveling at an unprecedented pace. You have begun to question what is happening as the structure of life as you know it begins to crumble. Before we continue on with today's episode, for those of you interested in getting more fantastic fungi in your life, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about a friend of mine's brand new company, The Great Mother. Recently, I have been drinking The Great Mother's superfood mushroom coffee alternative called Ritual, as well as regularly taking their awesome Ally microdoses, and I am truly loving both. As you probably know, these days, many of the world's highest achievers and performers swear by microdosing. The problem is it can still be difficult to get a hold of magic mushrooms. That's why when my friend reached out, who lives in an area and country where legalization is not a problem like it was in the past, and said he'd be willing to offer microdoses to my listeners, I wanted to pass the word along. Ally microdoses are 100% organic
And in addition to a small amount of the magic active ingredient, they also contain functional mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, and other brain boosters like bacopa. Ally is essentially a full spectrum nootropic. And of course, the coffee alternative Ritual doesn't contain magic mushrooms, but it has an array of the best organic functional mushrooms in the world. And, with functional mushrooms, it's really important to get them from the highest integrity sources. And whereas some other highly popular mushroom coffee alternatives on the market only contain a few varieties of functional mushrooms in their actual ingredients, Ritual has 7. Not only does it contain more types, it also contains 3 to 4 times the amount that the big brands have in each serving, and it tastes amazing. I actually like to have it on its own as well as mixing it into my coffee sometimes as well. However, since this is definitely a unique offering, there are a few steps. First, just reach out and request to follow the private page, thegreat.mother on Instagram. Once you've been accepted to follow, just message what you're interested in getting and someone will get back to you.
You look around you for explanations, and you probe your own circumstances for clues that would justify the destruction of the familiar. At first, you may resist the impetus to dematerialize what has been the foundation of your reality. In time, you will come to recognize the inevitability of the momentum that guides you. For this momentum is unyielding, carrying you in a direction that is new, yet feels comfortable and familiar. As you begin to realize the constraints that bind you to circumstances you have outgrown, you will discover that the direction of choice is found on a road you must travel alone. As you gather the fragments of the structure that crumbles around you, and as you cease trying to make sense of it, you will come to embrace the peace of knowing that the struggle is at last coming to an end. And you will experience a sense of sweet detachment from what was and an openness to what is yet to be. As you extract yourself from your previous life script, you will feel deep compassion for the effects of your actions on the circumstances of others with whom you have shared history in this lifetime. Yet, your focus remains clear as your recognition of the shift taking place within you provides the impetus to move forward and to release the ties that would bind you and hold you back. It is for you who now struggle with the circumstances of that shift in orientation to recognize the inevitability of that process. It is for you who struggle to hold on to know that the key to all you become lies in your willingness to let go and allow the metamorphosis in which you are deeply enmeshed to proceed. Once the initial resistance is overcome, there comes a total shift in focus to heart-centeredness. In this stage of being, your perception of self and that of the world around you become intertwined. You begin to dance with the energies of life, allowing the ebb and flow to determine the direction. You begin to recognize the potential in the joyous adventure that beckons to you to venture forth. And choices that might once have appeared to be reckless come to be viewed as divinely guided. You become aware of the heart space within and the song that emanates from it. You begin to harmonize with the breath of life pulsing within the core essence. And in that moment, you awaken to the recognition of the key to all you are and yet to be. The rise and fall of the breath of life determines the pace at which one can travel on one's journey. There is a quickening that occurs quite naturally when you allow the breath to guide you into the depths of your very being. Relaxing the physical senses relinquishes the sense of conscious direction, being willing simply to be in the moment with all that is. These are the parameters of the process that will guide the way, if you permit the process itself to be in control. There's little distinction between the in-breath and the out-breath when one shifts into the heart-centered state. Ultimately, there's no conscious awareness of breath at all, merely a connectedness to a sense of self that transcends one's definition of self. One experiences a sense of peace that is both profound and inconsequential, as it is one's very birthright. One becomes the rise and fall of the breath, and in that rhythm, one begins the process of expansion that opens the door. Riding on the wings of the rise and fall of the breath, one begins to experience a perception of self that transcends the limitations of physical form. One's energy field expands. One begins to encompass in actuality the expanded parameters of that field. And one bonds in oneness in that moment with an expanded aspect of self, an aspect of who one truly is. Initially, the expanded state is experienced in the moment and surrenders to the moment. Ultimately, one becomes that moment and becomes one with that expanded sense of self. The higher understandings and heightened perceptions of the expanded self become integrated into one's conscious awareness, and one is able to make the shift that enables one to transcend completely the limitations that bind one to an earthbound existence. Through the vehicle of breath, one is able to embody the higher state of beingness while retaining physical form. This is the experience you would refer to as ascension. One does not, as is popularly believed, cease to materialize in physical form in this process. Rather, one comes to embody each successive level as each is embraced and encompassed. One retains form as the heightened sensibilities are integrated, and one is able to resonate at the higher level of the expanded consciousness and to perceive the world as it truly is and increasingly comes to be. The understandings expand exponentially as each level is attained and integrated. Ultimately, one comes to embody all aspects of one's interdimensional lineage simultaneously. One comes to perceive as superfluous the physical definitions of identity that would keep one tethered to a reality that increasingly lacks relevance. One walks with an awareness of all that was recognizable reality and is keenly attuned to what is recognizable reality. And one is able to distinguish amongst such simultaneous perceptions of what becomes an increasingly multifaceted world. There are many who have glimpsed this state of being and have explored fleetingly the perceptions it offers. Inherent in the process is the opportunity to retain those levels of beingness and ultimately to experience embodiment in the realities they represent simultaneously. One can anticipate being able, for example, to experience multiple levels of reality, not by relinquishing one for another, but by encompassing sequentially each of those levels and becoming each expanded state of being, all of which are, in fact, you. Although your path is your own and the pace at which you travel is a matter of choice, you will not be expected to make the journey alone. Each progressive level of self is an investment in consciousness that is as committed to the process of integration as you are. As you reach energetically for and merge with each successive level of self, you embrace the loving intent of that expanded identity to integrate all that you are into its repertoire of awareness and response. As the levels of your consciousness intertwine, the distinction between those aspects of self cease to be, and oneness is achieved. There may be multiple levels of integration as fragmented aspects of what is, in fact, you merge in consciousness and become a collective of beingness that attains oneness simultaneously with a mutually shared higher self. It is indeed possible when integrating what could be considered to be lost aspects of self to lose conscious awareness of the differentiation of one's original identity. One bonds energetically with the collective and ultimately the sense of separation is obscured and gives way to the perception of one's expanded multidimensional self as that which one is. Once integration has taken place, one is able to transcend the limitation of one's previous focus. In so doing, one is able to remain in harmony with all that previously defined one's existence while simultaneously opening to encompass the fullness of the totality at that stage in one's process. There's no need to direct this process through your intent, for it is you who will be directed and not the other way around. One sense of it is of being in a state of absolute receptivity, of surrendering totally on every possible level. The need, the compulsion to control the process. One becomes as a leaf on the wind, embodying a willingness to be carried with the momentum of the process, knowing unquestioningly that one's best interest and one's well-being are being seen to in every possible way. In a sense, one becomes the wind while retaining the self-perception of the leaf. One embodies self-definition and form while merging in totality with momentum and direction. The energies become one, and the transference of the form from here to there is achieved. Once there, the qualities of momentum and direction are retained as an integral part of one's self-perception. And one is able, eventually at will, to merge with that momentum. One is able to ride the energy of momentum in the direction of that momentum, for one would be in complete harmony with that momentum. One would be the harmony that unites momentum and form. This is the direction in which you are headed in these times. This is a fragmentary glimpse of the world that awaits you. The world would be less the sense of a destination than of the journey itself. For the destination would be in relinquishing the need for destination. The objective would be in releasing the need to know. The opportunity would be in turning over the reins that would govern momentum and direction, and to experience the perfection of the ride. The question is, are you willing to risk relinquishing all you know, the entire structure of the belief system that defines and constricts your reality, for the chance that you may experience the perspective of your own expanded self? Are you willing to acknowledge that truth, as your experience has shown it to be, may not be the entire picture? Are you willing to consider the possibility that all you may value could, in fact, be worthless in the higher sense? Are you willing to accept that you are, in fact, ready for this journey? By virtue of the fact that you are even considering such questions, know that the process has indeed begun. It is not a question of if so much as a question of how and at what pace you will proceed. From the perspective of a being immersed in a linear physical reality, your challenge now is in your willingness to rise to risk that information that resonates to you as truth is actually truth. And that your objective in this stage in your development is to relinquish your hold on the limitation imposed by reality as you have known it to be. You are here to consider and ultimately to embrace the full multidimensional spectrum of your beingness as that which you are. You are here to begin to experience that expanded sense of self and to walk in the fullness of that state of beingness one step at a time. In this moment, you are all you are yet to become. For time, as you know it to be, is not a factor in what is transpiring in what you consider to be the now. All that is to happen has happened energetically. What is left to achieve is the physical manifestation of that expression of energy. This would explain why, at times, you are seemingly drawn to a particular set of circumstances. This would explain why you experience what you would consider to be synchronicity. And this would explain why you experience a sense of disharmony when you resist suggestions that nudge you to act upon certain opportunities. There are any number of avenues to the crossroads in which you may be headed at any given moment. When you take up the threads of a scenario that present itself to you as synchronicity, you experience the manifestation of that particular avenue, those particular sets of circumstances, and the individuals who feature in it. Were those threads not taken up, be assured that other potentially life-altering events would present themselves to you, scripted to deliver you to the very same crossroads, albeit via a different route. Forgive yourself the misdirected notion that you have strayed off track by letting certain opportunities pass you by. Know that you will get to where you're going by any number of alternative means. By definition, it cannot be otherwise. Likewise, forgive yourself the misdirected notion that you have impeded your own progress by your own judgment of your performance in a given set of circumstances. The very responses those scenarios invoked within you are those calibrated energetically to deliver you to the state of beingness in which you recognize consciously your tendency to respond in that way and relinquish your need to do so. Once you see the pattern, it is likely that you can cease repeating it and experience arrival at a crossroads that will carry you in a different direction entirely. In the present period, it is likely that you will experience a sense of coming to completion on a multitude of levels with the recurring themes that have dominated this lifetime. As a way of punctuating the point in question, it is likely that your experience will begin to serve you extreme variations on that theme. This is the indication that you are at completion with a particular leg of your journey and that it is indeed time to move on. Time, as you know it to be, is moving forward in an unprecedented pace. Events appear to be crammed into an improbably short space and at times seem to be happening simultaneously, which in fact they are. It is crucial as your rendezvous with oneness draws you even nearer, that you come to completion with the life themes that tether you to this reality. It is crucial that you attain a state of detachment from the energy charges that have magnetized you habitually throughout this lifetime. It is crucial that you recognize the common thread in the web of dramas that you have woven that continue to ensnare you. And it is crucial that you allow yourself the grace of your own humanness in responding to these recurring situations and love yourself for it. When you are able to stand back from the overview of the dramas in which you have played a starring role and see yourself as the award-winning performer that you truly are, you are well on your way to completing the journey. Until you have mastered what you have come here to experience, the level of beingness that seeks to integrate you in its journey to oneness cannot do so. As you reach out energetically with a heartfelt desire to bond with your own higher expression of beingness, know that that aspect of self reaches for you too and adds its energy to the equation of your totality. Until you are able to liberate yourself vibrationally from the chronic patterns of response that keep you stuck in endless repetitions of the same old song, your higher aspect of self is unable to integrate you without jeopardizing its own vibrational levels. Likewise, you may sense a tethering beneath the surface of your conscious awareness to deep-seated emotional patterns of response, which are out of proportion to the circumstances that evoke them. Consider the very real possibility that what links energetically to you in these moments are aspects of your own being who have been excluded from you and who seek to integrate with you in their journey towards oneness. From their perspective, you are the heightened state of beingness towards which they strive. You are the mastery they seek. You are the enlightened perspective that they have tasted fleetingly and with which they yearn to bond at the deepest heart level. Your own emotional response to given situations in your life opens the door to parallel scenarios with parallel energetic triggers at other levels of creation. The common ground and the paths upon which you will merge energetically with all aspects of self are the emotions you share at the deepest level. When you experience a particularly poignant response to a given situation, one that you may judge to be extreme, consider before judging yourself too harshly that what you may be feeling is depth of emotion you share mutually with an aspect of self that has been denied and was left behind along the way. By repressing the expression of the depths of your feeling, you only serve to prolong the separation between you and that aspect of self and to invite repeat performances of scenarios which are calculated to produce the same emotional response. It is imperative that you open your heart to the very real sensations of hurt, sorrow, or outrage summoned to you by circumstances in the dramas in which you play a part. In so doing, you pave the way for the reintegration of a missing piece of your own being whose life theme may be the embodiment of those very responses and who strives from his depths to transcend them. Without the reintegration of those lost fragments of your own consciousness, you will be unable to complete your journey in the way the sum totality of your beingness would wish to. Without giving yourself permission in this time frame to truly feel the depths of your emotional response mechanism, you're holding yourself back in the way that really matters at every level of creation. You are a multidimensional being. You are not limited to the particular identity that you have come to regard as you. There are viable aspects of self that live, unbeknownst to you, in parallel realities who reach out instinctively for the lost aspect of self that you would consider to be you. To these beings, you are a missing note in a chord that defines their very existence. You are the harmony toward which they strive and without which they are unable to achieve it. The key to your full participation in this multidimensional effort is to be present in all that you are and in all that you do so that you are able to be present in all that you are to become. Be conscious of what you are feeling and how you're responding in the dramas of your daily life. Be honest with yourself in your acknowledgement of your emotional responses, and be not so hasty in rejecting within your own repertoire of sensibilities the poignant feelings that you might have yourself believe are beneath you. Your emotional response mechanism is very real. The key to all you would accomplish in this lifetime hinges upon your willingness to embrace all that you are, for the chance that you may come to experience in oneness all that you truly are. Wow, that is so powerful. Definitely strikes a chord with me. I hope it strikes a chord with you. I'm just going to take that in now and close out the show for today's episode. I do have a track to leave you guys with as we talk about ascension and what it's like as we reintegrate, essentially entering heaven, a track called Heaven. This is Misfit, MSFT, Heaven, featuring Bodie Jones. Hope you enjoy. Until next time, all you other parts of self, journey well, love yourself, go easy on yourself. You're doing it. Love you all.
my mind. Yeah, if I close my eyes, I feel your lips on mine. I wanna stay forever. Hotter than hell you'll find. Ooh, girl, you blow my mind. You got me up inside. You got the keys to heaven. You got the keys to heaven. You got the keys to heaven. I'm giving all of mine. Girl, give me one more sign. You got me on that line. Throw me the keys to heaven. I got you on my mind. Yeah, if I close my eyes, I feel your lips on mine. I wanna stay forever. I'm giving all of mine. Girl, give me one more sign. You got me on that line. Throw me the keys to heaven.